A vice president of the European Parliament has been charged with corruption over allegations that World Cup host Qatar paid huge bribes to influence EU policy. Eva Kaili has been stripped of her powers after investigators reportedly found bags of cash in her home. She's one of 4 people arrested so far in connection with the scandal.
A massive corruption scandal at the heart of Europe that is getting bigger. High-level EU officials stand accused in an alleged influence-buying scheme by Qatar. One of them is Eva Kaili. She's one of the parliament's vice presidents. Recently, Kaili had become a vocal defender of the Gulf country.
They are a new generation of intelligent, high-educated people. They helped us to reduce the tension with Turkey. They helped us with Afghanistan to save activists, children, women. They helped us, and they are peace negotiators. They are good neighbors and partners.
Kaili even praised Qatar as a front-runner in labor rights. World Cup host Qatar has faced wide criticism for mistreatment of the migrant workers who built new stadiums. Qatar has denied using any illegal means of lobbying. Kaili remains in police custody, along with 3 other people. She has been suspended from her duties as vice president, as well as from membership in her party. Kaili and the other 3 people arrested have been charged with participation in a criminal organization, money laundering and corruption.
We cannot afford to be paralyzed. And this is why I will propose a package of measures to carve out a way forward. First, the Commission will do all that it can do on its own. We will put our bilateral support to Israel on hold. We will stop all payments in these areas without affecting our work with Israeli civil society or Yad Vashem. Second, we will make 2 further proposals to the Council. We will propose sanctions on the extremist ministers and on violent settlers. And we will also propose a partial suspension of the association agreement on trade-related matters.
The United States is constantly being asked to help in a war, and we have more than any other country in the world, on a war that's happening in another continent, in Ukraine. But when the U.S. had a need, he didn't get proper positive responses. So right now he's just making the observation that, I think there was a couple of leaders in Europe who said that this was not Europe's war. Well, Ukraine is not America's war, and yet we've contributed more to that fight than any other country in the world.
Mr. Secretary, are you going to ask G7 to help with the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, it's in their interest to help. The other countries get far more of their fuel from there than we do. So
what kind of help are you going to ask? Wine sweepers, naval help?
Well, those specifics I'll leave it to the Department of War as to exactly what, but it's in their interest. It's in their national interest.
Do you think President Trump criticizing NATO this morning, that sentiment?
I think he just made an observation, and the observation is that the United States is constantly being asked to help in a war, and we have more than any other country in the world, on a war that's happening in another continent, in Ukraine. But when the U.S. had a need, he didn't get proper positive responses. So right now he's just making the observation that, I think there was a couple of leaders in Europe who said that this was not Europe's war. Well, Ukraine is not America's war, and yet we've contributed more to that fight than any other country in the world. So it'll be something to examine. The president will have to take into account down the road.
What's your assessment? Nobody's a match for the United States, but they're not a match for the United States. It's small potatoes. That's why I'm so disappointed in NATO, because this was a test for NATO. This was a test. You can help us. You don't have to, but if you don't have, if you don't do that, we're going to remember. Just remember this in a number of months from now. Remember my statements. They have an expression, a great expression, never forget. You can never forget.
Trump says the Middle East is closer than ever to being free from the Iranian regime and its threats. This as CENTCOM announcing today an additional 3,500 U.S. troops have now arrived to the Mideast. Our Lucas Tomlinson is live from the White House with the latest developments. Hi, Lucas.
Good afternoon, Aisha. And over 2,000 of those Marines are aboard the USS Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group, which CENTCOM says is now in the Arabian Sea. And while speaking in Miami, President Trump had a very specific number in mind about how many more targets there are to destroy inside Iran.
We're just floating over the top looking for whatever we want, and we're hitting it. And we have another 3,554 targets left. And that'll be done pretty quickly. And then, at some point, we're going to have to determine what we do.
Recall, the White House said this war will last 4 to 6 weeks. Today marks 1 month of this war kicking off inside Iran. Now, after another B-2 strike in Iran, those missions flown around the world from their base in Missouri, Secretary of State Marco Rubio thinks no ground troops will be needed.
We can achieve all of our objectives without ground troops, but we are always going to be prepared to give the president maximum optionality and maximum opportunity to adjust to contingencies should they emerge.
Yeah, it was.
Since 1979, these people have been terrorizing the world. They've got American blood on their hands, and here's what we accomplished in 20 days. Their missile program has been obliterated.
But
their
we saw
nuclear
the missile
program
that went
has been
towards
obliterated,
Deir
and
Garcia.
they're running out of money. So here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Carg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil, control that island, let this regime die on a vine. Hopefully the people will rise up. What I'm looking for is defanging Iran so we can move to peace. The Iranian people one day will have ability to take their country back. But we have the best chance in 2,000 years when Iran is neutralized for Saudi and Israel to recognize each other in the Arab-Israeli conflict. That is my goal. That is President Trump's goal. 2026 could be the biggest year since 1945 if we neutralize Iran. Don't let them do it again.
Well, let me tell you, it is crucial that the president, that the US is doing this, to take out the nuclear capability and the ballistic missile capability, because this is posing a threat. It is an existential threat to Israel. It is a threat to the region. It is a threat to Europe, to the whole world. And so it is really crucial that the US is doing this. And I hope that people understand that argument, even if they're doubting whether it was necessary or not. It is necessary, and I commend the president's leadership on this.
The relationship's a very good one, I think so. We want more or less similar things. You know what we want? We want victory, both of us, and that's what we've got. Well, I may have a plan or I may not, but how would I ever say that to a reporter? If I said that to a reporter, Marco would say, "Please, sir, let's bring you over to the helicopter immediately." Right? I can't tell you that. It's certainly a place that's people are talking about, but I can't say. Yeah.
We have in our hemisphere a regime operated by an indicted narco-trafficker that became a base of operation for virtually every competitor, adversary, and enemy in the world. It was, for Iran, their primary spot of operation in the Western Hemisphere was Venezuela. For Russia, their primary base of operation in the Western Hemisphere, along Cuba and Nicaragua, was Venezuela. In the case of China, China was receiving oil at a huge, about $20 a barrel discount, and they weren't even paying money for it. It was being used to pay down debt that they were owed. This is the oil of the people of Venezuela, and it was being given to the Chinese as barter at a 20%, at a $20 discount per barrel in some cases. And so you had basically three of our primary opponents in the world operating from our hemisphere from that spot.
U.S. President Donald Trump hosted Latin American leaders in Florida on Saturday to announce the formation of a military coalition against drug cartels.
The heart of our agreement is a commitment to using lethal military force to destroy the sinister cartels and terrorist networks once and for all. We'll get rid of them.
At least a dozen.
War in this context and in pursuit of peace is necessary.
Our military is the greatest in the world, with the greatest equipment and the greatest people in the world. There's Nobody's ever seen anything like it. They're not the bully of the Middle East anymore.